Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 2025 UWMP Guidebook Optional Planning Tool Training. My name is Paloma Cornejo. I'm an environmental scientist for the Department of Water Resources and a part of the UWMP team here. And today I will be showing you how to use this optional planning tool so that you can use it to help you out with your UWMP for the 2025 cycle or any cycle after this. And this will be really helpful for you when you complete your UWMP, specifically the Water Service Reliability Assessment and Drought Risk Assessment sections of the UWMP. So let's get into it. But before we get into the content, let's go over how you can access this material. The training video is going to be posted on DWR's YouTube along with the 2020 trainings, and the link to that will be on DWR's UWMP page. If you scroll down to the bottom of that page, there will be a training section, and there you can find the YouTube link. And then the Excel sheet where you can access the actual tool for you to use will be available in the resources section of WUI data. As you can see from this picture here at the bottom, there's this red box around resources. So if you go to the page and click the resources section in the UWMP section, that's where you can find the Excel file. And before we get into anything else, I want to make clear that this tool is completely optional. It is a worksheet for your use and to help you out. There are no DWR submittal tables nor tables in WUI data that correspond to these tables in any way, so there's no requirement to submit them. Of course, they are related to the submittal tables, and it will help you fill out information in them, but there's no way that they are linked in any way, so anything you enter into the planning tool will not automatically populate the submittal tables. However, you can copy and paste data from the tool into your tables. But yes, just to reiterate, they are optional and for your use so that you can use them however you want. And before we get into how to use the tool, we're going to go over how it might be beneficial for you to use this tool. So as I mentioned, this tool will be helpful to complete your water service reliability and drought risk assessments. It will allow you to organize and assess your water service reliability. So you can look at trends in your water use and supply, your service reliability, and just help you out in managing your water in general and look at it in a more detailed sense. The tool will allow you to record and compare water supply and use by month or other time steps shorter than 1 year. And this is really helpful because in the UWMP, it mainly reports data annually by the year. And so this accommodates different time steps, so it will allow you to get a more detailed look at your water supply and use. So yes, in this next point here, it mentions it accommodates bi-monthly, seasonal, or annual reporting by skipping columns. So for example, if you just want to look at two sections, so 6 months and 6 months, or if you just want to look at, say, your summer supply, or maybe you just want to use one value and you can input that so that you get a total for the year. However you want to use it and however will be most beneficial for you, it's completely up to you, but it will have 12 months, and so you can separate it however you will. And this will be helpful because it highlights any seasonal shortages that you may not be able to see if you're just looking at an annual basis. Yes, so as mentioned, it will be much more detailed. The code mainly just requires annual numbers, so this will give you the option to dive in a bit deeper to that. So without further ado, let's get into the actual tool. These are the three worksheets that the tool consists of. There is the use worksheet, the supply worksheet, and the supply use worksheet. So we're going to get into each tool separately. And so let's look at the use worksheet first. So the use worksheet is separated into three parts. There is the normal/base year water use, your single dry year projected water use, and part 3 is your 5-year drought water use projection. So this tool will allow you to record water use for a normal year or current year, and we'll talk about that in a second, single dry year, and a 5-year drought period by sector in monthly, seasonal, or annual time steps. So let's look at the tool. So as I mentioned, there's three parts. This is just part one. So this isn't the full tool, but we're going to look at it a part at a time. So here's how part one looks. So yes, this tool can be used for normal year or for current year. So for example, if you wish to look at your water use for the next 5 years, for example, with the drought risk assessment, we'll look at the next 5 years after 2025. I believe it's 2026 through 2030. So if you want to use this tool in the context of those years, you can use this tool for your current year and then compare it to all those years after that. Or if you just want to use this tool for general planning purposes, you can just insert data for a normal year as well. It just depends on how you wish to use it. So you can insert this current year or normal year. Just make sure you keep track of which one you're using the tool for. But let's look at some of the features of it. So as mentioned, it allows for reporting by retail use sectors. So if you look in this use category on the left, it has all these listed out with three other sections and distribution system water loss at the bottom. So this is set up for retail suppliers specifically. If you are a wholesale supplier and you want to use this tool as well, you may need to edit the sectors a bit. So when you access the tool in Excel, you can change up these section names so that you can make it more fitting to what your requirements are as a wholesale supplier. Wholesale suppliers aren't required to report water use by sectors, so this tool is more catered to retail suppliers in that way. But however you wish to use it, you can edit it as needed. But here are the tools, and we'll talk about why distribution system water loss is separated down here in a second. So yes, as mentioned, it's reporting separated into monthly increments. So if you look here, there's month 1 through 12, and the months are non-distinctive. So it doesn't say January through December, because if maybe your water year looks different than a different one. Maybe you want to look at it by your fiscal year, which would be, starting in July or whatever it is. Or maybe you want to look at it starting when a contract begins. So you can determine what month is what. Just make sure you keep track of which one it will be non-distinctive in this way, and you can define it as needed. But as mentioned, you can also use this for bi-monthly, seasonal, or annual planning. So that being said, you can look at it in sections. Maybe you just want to do month 1 through 6. Maybe you just want to do 7 through 12. And then you can look at it in those separate sections. And this can be really helpful because it will allow you to see any shortages or where your water looks like in specific months at a time. So that's really helpful. Flipping on. So next we're going to look at these green cells over here. These green cells will indicate that there is a calculation formula happening. So as you can see, there's this total column on the right, and this will be your total for going across here. If you want to look at just your total for single family, for example, or just for groundwater recharge, you can get that total over here. It will automatically calculate it, so it's going to sum all the values in that row. Or maybe you just want to look at your totals for the month. You can do that by month as well. And then, as mentioned, there's two columns down here. There's your customer water use subtotal, and then your total water use at the bottom. And your customer water use subtotal is your water use that is sent to and received at its designated destination. So this would be your water without loss included. Loss is a use sector that needs to be reported in the UWMP for retail suppliers. And so it would be part of your total water use down here at the bottom. But if you want to see what your water use looks like, the water that actually ended up being sent to and received at its designated destination, then you can get that total right here. And it just gives you a more detailed look at your water use in general. And yeah, you can insert your distribution system water loss down here at the bottom. Make sure you enter it as a positive number because it's going to take your water use subtotal and your water loss and add them together to get your total water use down here. All right. Great, and that's part one. So next we're going to get into part two, which is a single dry year projected water use. So this part two is going to use data from part one in order to get your single dry year water use. So if you filled out part one, it's going to take those values here in this top row or this purple row, and it will automatically fill those in for you. And then the only thing that you have to do is insert your change from normal slash base year as either a positive number for increase or a negative number for decrease. So if you had an increase in water in your month one, you would insert that here. And the bottom row, down at the bottom, is going to add that number to your normal base year water use and get your single dry year water use automatically. So this purple row at the top is going to take your number from the total water use in the previous part, and then you only have to insert the change in the middle row here. And then you'll also get your totals on the side for each of these. And so yeah, that'll look at single dry year. Notice that this part is not separated into use sectors. We felt that it might be a bit difficult to project that for a single dry year, so it's not there. But however, if you want to do it by sector, you can also alter part one to do that. But this just gives you an overview. All right, and on to part three. This is the 5-year drought water use projection. So it's very similar to the single dry year table. It will take the value from your normal slash base year table, so part one, and it's going to fill out this first row here or the purple row. And then you just have to insert your change in normal slash base year use, again, as a positive or a negative, depending on if it's an increase or decrease. And then you're going to do that for each year. So you're going to insert the change for year one, year two, three, and consecutively for 5 years, and then you'll get your 5-year values. Something to note is when you enter this data, this is going to be the data without having triggered any water shortage contingency plan actions. There will be a section in the last worksheet, the supply to use worksheet, where you can report any benefits from your water shortage contingency plan actions for use and supply, but you're not going to include that in these values here. So it's going to be happening at the end, just a note. And this applies for all parts of the use worksheet and supply worksheet. All right, and lastly, there's this projected use overview. This is just a table to organize your projected use for each year type. So there's normal, single dry, and a multi-year drought. And this thing is for years 2030 up to 2050, optionally. And these are the same years that will be used in the UWMP for your projections, your 5-year increment projections. And this table will be helpful in completing your UWMP water shortage contingency plan tables. And this is just a place to kind of keep it all together, organize it in one place so that you can copy and paste data from here. However, this table is a manual entry, so it's not going to come from any other table. You would have to enter the values in here directly. All right, moving on. Now we're in the supply worksheet. This worksheet is separated into two parts. Part one is estimated supply by year type, and part two is your projected supplies. So this table allows for the quantification of a supplier's estimated and projected water sources for a normal, single dry, and 5-year drought period. And again, it's going to allow for monthly time steps or other time steps, just like the use worksheet. And what's cool about this worksheet, it provides separate reporting by water source. So you're going to insert all the data for one source and then for a separate source. And it will provide an automatic summary of your total available supplies. So this tracks which supplies are available or not available at different times of the year. So that's really helpful. And you can also use this worksheet to look at what certain year types should look like in the context of your demands. So you don't have to put your actual data in there, but you can put what you would like it to look like. So for example, you're looking at your demands and you say, if I were to have this much supply, would that be able to meet my use for this year? or whatever it is. And again, you can use it however you want, just however is most beneficial to you. All right, let's look at it. So this is a full supply worksheet. It has part one here on the left and part two. They are separated into two different parts, but let's look at a part at a time. So this is part one. Let's look at this bottom part down here first. This is individual estimated supply by year type. So you will be able to report by source as mentioned. So as you can see, it says source one here, source two here. So you can describe your source right here and you can put a name for it. So for example, if you want to say, this is purchased water from the State Water Project, you can put that here and then you can put all the data for your normal, single dry, and multi-year drought data all for that one source. And this will include space for up to 20 sources. So it says source one here and two, but I believe there's space for 20. If you have more than 20, you are also able to add more rows if needed. So yeah, as mentioned, it's for the different year types and what that would look like for your system, maybe what a normal year will look like, or a single dry year, etc. And again, it's separated into months and they're not defined as January to December. You just make sure you keep track of what month is what, and it will help you create different time steps as well to look at it in a different way. And then looking up here in this estimated supply summary section, so all the data that you insert into your individual water sources down here in the individual section are going to be summed up into this summary table up here. So for example, the data that you put for a normal year month one in this cell and a normal year month one in this cell for two different sources are going to be added together, and then it will be put up right here in these green cells. As mentioned, the green cells mean that there's a calculation formula. And that will happen automatically, so you don't have to add up all the data yourself. It's going to show up right here in this big summary table. The summary table also includes a space for EAR data for comparison purposes. So if you want to look at what supply might look like on average, you can then do that comparison right there. Okay, part two. Part two is for your projected supplies. So in the same way that the estimated supply was done by source, the projected supply is also done by source. They're connected. So if you look at the full table here, they're all connected by this. So you define your source over here. Just make sure that you keep it the same source on this same row, the big row. So moving on back over here. So yeah, this is projected supply in 5-year increments up to 2050. And again, it's reported by source. And these are the 5-year increments that will be used for the UWMP, so it's really helpful for that. And then it's going to sum up all the values up here from your individually reported sources. Again, the data you put in each cell for each source is going to be summed up in their respective cell. And at the end, I'm going to do a demonstration of how that might look. It might be confusing just explaining it, so you'll see towards the end. All right, but that was the supply worksheet, and now we're going to look at the supply use worksheet. And this one is separated into 3 parts as well. It has the normal year supply use comparison, single dry year supply use comparison, and the drought risk assessment worksheet. So the function of this table is that, or this worksheet is that it compares monthly supply and use values for a normal, single dry, and 5 consecutive dry years. And the 5 consecutive dry years is what's done in the DRA. And it auto-calculates the monthly surplus or shortfall using the values from your use and supply worksheets. So if you completed your use and supply worksheet, this worksheet is going to be very simple because it takes data from those worksheets. So part 1 is your normal year. As mentioned, these purple cells indicate that it's taking data from a previous table. So this column, or this row, the total water use, is coming from your use worksheet, your total value at the bottom. And then your total supply is coming from your supply worksheet, that summary table up at the top. And so it has these two values here already perfectly aligned for comparison. And then your cell at the bottom, or this row right here, the surplus shortfall without water shortage contingency plan action, is going to automatically calculate. So it's going to take your use and your supply, and it's going to get a value right here to determine either a surplus, which will show up as a positive number, or shortfall, which will show up as a negative number. Oh, let me see if there's, oh yeah, there we go. The purple cells autofill, and then this is going to give you your surplus or shortfall automatically. And then you can also fill in any volume changes that will result from water shortage contingency plan actions to get a revised surplus or shortfall. So that's going to be really the only data that you're going to manually enter if you already did the use and supply worksheet. And it's going to automatically calculate your revised surplus and shortfall right here at the bottom. Additionally, it's going to automatically calculate the percent use reduction from those actions taken. And it's going to use that, take that from the use reduction saving benefit and this use worksheet value. And then it's going to get it for each month. And then the total over here. So part 2 is for your single dry year. It's going to take from your single dry year section of your use worksheet and the single dry year section of your supply worksheet to automatically fill these purple cells here, just like in part 1 of this worksheet, to get your surplus and shortfall. And then again, you're going to manually enter your water shortage contingency plan actions, your either supply augmentation benefit or use reduction savings benefit, to get a revised surplus and shortfall. And then again, it's going to automatically calculate your resulting percent use reduction from those actions. All right. In part 3, if this looks familiar, it's because it's the same as part 1 and 2. It's going to automatically take from your 5-year drought section of your use worksheet and your supply worksheet again. So this is going to take from year 1. This one's going to take from year 2. It's going to get that surplus and shortfall for you, and then you're going to enter your water shortage contingency plan action benefits, and then it's going to give you the revised surplus, and it's going to do the percent use reduction automatically for each year. So this tool is really helpful because it can help you populate your submittal table 7.5, which is going to be the comparison section of the drought risk assessment. So if you already did your use worksheet and supply worksheet from this tool, it's going to automatically give you these values that you can copy and paste into your UWMP tables. So that's really good. On this slide, it only shows year 1 and 2, but it does do all 5 years of the drought risk assessment, and I will show you that in a second. So yeah, let's get to the demo. All right, so now we're going to do a quick demo of how the values that you enter into the tool are going to automatically fill in other places. It just might be easier to see it as it's done, so we're going to do that. So for example, if you enter 1,000 in your month 1 for single family, once you do that, it's going to automatically fill into your single family total over here on the right. It's going to automatically fill into your customer water use subtotal and your total water use. We're going to look at part 1 and 3 in a second, but first let's look at part 1. Anything that you enter in this column here for month 1 is going to automatically sum down here, and then you can go across and get your total values as well. So if say, for example, you also have a value in month 6, which is 200. It's going to automatically fill over here. And no, it didn't fill in here. That's just for month 1, but it did complete the total for month 6 down here. And then it's also going to take your total over here. And then maybe you have a value for groundwater recharge as well. It's going to fill in on the right over here. And then you have 2,000 right here in your total. Okay, that'll give you your customer water use subtotal. Say you also want to enter your loss. You're going to enter that as a positive number. So say you have 100 in losses. That's going to automatically update right here in your total water use row. and it's going to automatically update over here. You can also get a total for your distribution system water loss over here on the right. And then it has a separate section here. So say, yeah, you didn't have any loss in this month. That's just why it's so helpful. It allows you to separate it by month and look at it. Maybe you have loss here, maybe you have loss there, but it will allow you to look at it a bit more detailed. All right, so moving on to part 2. So as mentioned, this purple row right here is going to take from your part 1 automatically. So as you can see right here, there's 2,100 in your month 1, and that's going to automatically fill right here in your month 1 for single dry year. And over here, you have total of 200 for your month 6, and that automatically filled right here. There's no values here, but obviously you would want to fill in whatever values you have, but just for demonstration purposes, we're going to keep it simple. So if you wanted to use part 2, you can insert your change from the normal/base year right here as a positive or negative number. So say for your single dry year, you had a change of 500. And so that's gonna, oh, sorry. So then you had a decrease of 500. So then you would make it negative. Decrease in water use, and it's automatically going to calculate that. So now you have 1,600. And then say you had a decrease, or say you had an increase. I don't know why you would during a dry year, but maybe you do. An increase of 100 right here, that's automatically going to update right here in your single dry use water year total for month 6. And then you're also going to get a total over here on the right, and you'll get a total for your change as well. So it's going to take negative 500 and 100, add those together to get negative 400. All right. And then moving on to part 3, your row at the top is going to take from your use table as well. I mean, for your part 1, so this row right here. If you want to change this column, or sorry, not column, this row, you're going to want to change your values up here because it's going to take from there automatically. And then if you want to insert any changes from that year for each year, you're going to insert that here. So say each year you had a decrease in 200. Decrease 200. Decrease to 200. It's going to automatically fill down as you continue to add values there. So yeah, that's why it's really helpful. And again, it keeps it all separate. So month 6, say you don't have any changes, it's not going to show those right there. But again, this will automatically fill into your supply use worksheet at the end. So we'll see that in a bit. But first, let's look at this projected use section. As mentioned, it is just a manual entry. It's not going to automatically fill from anything you insert here or any other worksheet. So if you wanted to keep track of your projected use, you could enter that data here as needed. All right. So that is the full use worksheet here. Oh, and I forgot to mention that this is where you will be able to select your unit of measure. You're going to want to keep it consistent with the values you use in your UWMP, but this is just so you can enter it here, just maybe as a reminder. It gives you the 3 options to drop down. All right, moving on. Here's the supply worksheet. And this is it in its full glory. As mentioned, there's 20 sources here. So if you scroll down, there's up to 20. But of course, if you're blessed and you have more than 20 sources, you can insert another row and make that source 22. So let's see. There you go. We got another source already. You can change that to 21 and add more as needed. But since, say, we don't have 20 sources, I can delete that. Shift the cells back up and all is well. Okay, let's go back to the top. So this is source 1. Say this is State Water Project water and it's purchased. You would describe that right here, the space it allows, and then you're going to enter your data. So here, for example, you just put your month 1 normal year. Let's say that's 2000. It's going to automatically fill up here and right here, as you can see in your summary table. Oh, and right here. And then say you want to put single dry year data, maybe it's 1,500. That's going to automatically fill in up here, right there, and right here. And here is your multi-year drought. Say, I don't know, you have 1,000 and say it's the same number for all 4 years, or all 5 years, I'm not sure. But as you can see, it automatically fills in right there perfectly. And say you also want to enter data for month 6, say there's 300 and 400. That's going to automatically fill in up here. And it's going to complete your totals over here on the right for your normal year, your single dry year, and continue on. All right, and then maybe you want to look at a different source. All of this that we already entered was only for the state water project purchase water. So say you wanted to keep track of another source. Maybe it's from basin X. I'm not sure, made up basin name. And it's groundwater. Groundwater. All right. And then you're going to enter perhaps values for month 1, normal year, say it's 300. These are random values if you can't tell. So it took 300 right here from your month 1 normal year and your month 1 normal year of source 1 and source 2, and it automatically summed those. So 2,000 plus 300, you get 2,300. So let's look at the formula here. As you can see, it's going to take from that same cell all the way down. And so you don't have to add that all up yourself. So very helpful. And say you enter values for month 6 over here as well. I don't know, you have 5,000, I guess. Or maybe let's make it 500. And it's going to automatically add all the way up here. So 500 plus 300, you get 800. And see the formula is going to take from that same cell all the way down. And that's going to be the same for all these cells. It's going to match all the way down to all 20 sources. If you fill in all of them, that will automatically sum. All right, and then same thing over here for part 2, your projected supplies. If you have 400, I could fill that across here. You can see it's automatically going to fill in as I entered it. So you have 400 more and from another source, and it's going to automatically add those up respectively. Say this year you had a bit less. So it's changed right here in this column specifically. And as mentioned, this side over here from part 1 is connected to the supply source over here, over here part 2 is connected to part 1. So this whole section is all one source. So say you only wanted to look at your projected supplies for a certain source, you would just leave this front section empty. You would label it over here, I don't know, blah. And then you would put your values in over here. And automatically it's going to fill in. You can look at the formula, see that it takes from that same cell all the way down. All right, and that's your supply worksheet. Again, you can enter your units here at the top. It's a drop down. And yeah, moving on. And then this is the last section here. As you can see, there's already values in it, even though we haven't done it yet. And that's because it's taking it from your use worksheet and your supply worksheet. So let's see if we can track it back. So we have 2,100 right here in your total water use for month 1 for a normal year. So let's look at our use worksheet, 2,100 right here. It's taking it from this value automatically. So that's showing right here. Same with month 6, 200 from your normal year right there. All right. And then same thing with your supply worksheet. There's 2,300 in month 1 for your total supply. 2,300, that's from right here. Your total section summary up here. All right. And using those values from your supply and use worksheet, it's going to automatically calculate your surplus and your shortfall. So it looks like here we have a surplus of 200, which is great. Over here we have a surplus of 600. Let's see if we can show a shortage. Or actually, let's leave it there. Let's continue on to part two. Part two, for a single dry year, it again automatically took the values from your use and supply worksheet. So month one, single dry year, take it from right here. And then month one, supply, taking it from right here. There we go. And it automatically gave you a shortfall in this case, because it's a negative number. So say we have a shortfall of 100 acre feet, for example, is what you entered for your units. And say you had a action that reduced your use. So maybe 50. So as you can see, it automatically completed a calculation right here in these rows. So now your revised surplus and shortfall is negative 50. So you also did a supply augmentation benefit action that gave you another 50. So now you have no surplus or shortfall because it automatically included this extra 100 right here and got your new surplus and shortfall. And then again, as mentioned, it's going to automatically calculate your use reduction percentage, taking your use reduction savings benefit and dividing it by your own use. So here we have 3%. And say right here in month six, we have a surplus. So maybe you don't need to do any action for that. Great, and that's part two. And again, you have your totals over here, totals over here. All right, and part three, this is your DRA worksheet. So again, it has all 5 years, year 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They're not labeled as the years for the DRA for this cycle because, again, this could be used for future years as well. So if you're using this for this cycle, you can label it. You can change the name if you want from year 1 to 2026 and so on. But let's look at year 1. This is again taking from your use worksheet and your supply worksheet. So month 1, use from year 1 in your use worksheet right here. That's where it's taking the data from. And then again, your total supply from year 1 right here. Perfect. All right, and it looks like we have a shortfall of negative or of 900. So maybe you definitely want to take some action in your water shortage contingency plan, and maybe you do 1,000. Great, now you don't have a shortfall, but now you have a surplus. Or maybe it wasn't a supply augmentation benefit, maybe it was a use benefit. So now you have a surplus of 100. And look at that, you have a percentage of 53 use reduction from that action. So that's great. We also have a shortage over here. So if you had any action, you can insert that here. Now you have a surplus. Or maybe you don't, and you just end up having a shortage. That's why this is so helpful. It allows you to see what your shortages might be throughout the year. If you were just looking at the annual value over here, you wouldn't be able to see that there's a shortage in month 6 or month 1. But this allows you to look at it more specifically and see where you might need to make some changes or implement any actions to help out with making sure your water service is reliable for your suppliers. And you can do that for all the years here. As you can see, there's data from all the years that we entered in the use and supply worksheet. And these values over here in your total column will be able to be copied and pasted into your submittal table 7.5, which is your drought risk assessment table for the UWMP. So yeah, that is the optional planning tool. We hope that this tool is beneficial for you when you complete your UWMP. As you can see, it just provides a bit more of a detailed look at your water service reliability, and it's going to be helpful in allowing you to manage your water and do any sort of planning related to your submittal tables. And I hope that this training was helpful for you and that you are able to use it easily. And if needed, you can review this video other times. And of course, if you have any questions related to the tool or the UWMP, you're free to ask. You can send emails to the UWMP help email, and I or anyone from the UWMP team can help you out with any questions you have. But thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Thank you.